3 Americans, 2 political parties, talking about one terminal diagnosis. This is political malpractice. Welcome back to Political Malpractice. Sorry we missed you guys last week. Chris was a little sick. We are better now, though, yes?
Yes, much better. Yes, much better. And it just came up last minute, so there was no heads up. So sorry,
Yeah.
guys.
All right. So I wanted to talk about this last week, and it's still pertinent this week because we're still seeing some blowback from it. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you heard, but there was a gentleman in, I want to say Pennsylvania, and within the last now 2 or 3 weeks, he had written a letter to the state DA's office and just basically was critical of the DA and, was saying, you're breaking the law, said something about, he was basically saying, like, you're playing Russian roulette, with the laws that you're enforcing and not enforcing. And
Mm.
within 2 or 3 weeks of him having sent out that email, HS visited him. And he was like, "What are you here for?" And
Right.
they had a subpoena, and they wanted to subpoena all of his electronics. They were going after him, alleging that that email that he had sent was a threat. You and I joke about, is Christy Nome going to come knock down our door because we talk shit about her?
Right.
But I don't think it's so much of a joke anymore.
Okay. All right. So that is, hmm. I mean, here's the thing, and this is kind of funny. The other day I was talking, and it will tie into this, but you know how I like to give a little anecdote first. Uh, so the other day I was talking to this very right leaning woman, and she's kind of like me. It's like, no, I don't want there to be illegal immigrants here, but at the same time, can't support what they're doing now, can't support the way they're going about it, all that type of stuff. And I was like, oh, that's interesting because I was like, I'm finding it, a lot of conservatives still are kind of like not sure what to say, but she definitely had an opinion on it. And so I was like, well,
Mhm.
why do you think that? And she was like, well, I think that what they're doing is prepping us to be used to the federal government coming and controlling our lives, be it through
Mhm.
law enforcement agencies or the military itself. I think that what you're talking about here is yet another one of those things. It's like they're kind of like shooting, little missiles in to find out, our weaknesses and where we're strong and whatever. And this sort of thing is probably going to go largely unnoticed. But
Right.
the simple fact is it's just one more little shot to figure out what we'll tolerate. And I think that's what all this
Mhm.
ICE stuff is. And I think that that's exactly what you're talking about. At least that's what it sounds like to me.
I absolutely agree. The last time we recorded, we had talked about Carr, the head of the FCC, and, trying to pull in old laws that have now just been considered defunct and limit broadcasting. But he just dropped another bombshell saying that he has a desire to eliminate Section 230, which removes the immunity from social media companies so that he can go in and censor social media. Everybody kind of freaked out um, with,
Um,
Facebook trying to limit misinformation. So they kind of went, screw it. Now you have a bunch of bullshit posts on Facebook that, the boomers all think is legit shit. Um, but now you have Carr who wants to go in there and basically take over social media, which is kind of scary because yet another monopoly came in and swallowed TikTok. So,
Right.
what do we have now that is not owned by one of the 5 families? Absolutely nothing.
Well, the thing is it's it's beyond the social media stuff, but I think that that's a weakness. There will probably be a lot of people who will sit there and say, "Yeah, we need to rein in what social media is doing to our country and blah 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 and all that type of stuff." And there will be 50 gazillion different reasons as to why that should be. And I can even think of some good reasons for it as far as reining it in, especially when it comes to children. That'll probably be how they'll sell it, by the way.
Mhm, mhm. It
But,
I absolutely think it should be limited as far as
mhm.
kids are concerned, you know?
Yeah, no,
Um,
and I think so too, but that'll be the first shot across the bow, so to speak. And
right.
everybody will agree with that. Then they'll take it further because we've got Donald Trump talking about, was it Donald Trump or one of his other henchmen? I can't remember. I think it was Don, talking about, the FCC going after The View and any other media company that spreads, fake news. Well, last time I checked, The View was really more of an opinion show than it was an actual
Yeah,
news thing. So, I mean, your argument's already lost on me right there. It's like, no, this is an opinion show, you know. But still, I'm not about like moderating news to whatever's supposedly fake and real, But my God, The View is a fucking opinion show. You have, that what was it, some senator or representative from Florida, I think it was, wanting to go after the NFL and
mhm,
everything over the halftime show because evidently some F bombs or something like that was dropped in Spanish or whatever. I mean, the simple fact is, Janet Jackson showed her tit, and ultimately, I don't think that anybody ended up paying any fines. But these fuckers are looking to actually make
right,
sure they do.
right. The censorship of free speech terrifies me. Um, there's a revolutionary or a revolutionist professor. It's the wrong thing for me to call him, but basically, he has studied revolutions throughout history. And, with that, he basically has built a course that he teaches at college that talks about revolutions. And here's like the 5 steps of a country after it's gone from one revolution to another revolution. You know,
Mhm,
he was talking about how, the First Amendment, they weren't even going to include it in the Bill of Rights. The Anti Federalists had to fight because the Federalists didn't want it in there. They did not want people to have the ability to speak out against the government. And, in my reading this week, I came across a court case that I thought was really interesting, and I pulled out the judge's quote. He said that function of free speech under our system of government is to invite dispute. It may indeed best serve its high purpose when it induces a condition of unrest, creates dissatisfaction with conditions as they are, or even stirs the pot to anger. Speech is often provocative and challenging. It may strike at prejudices and preconceptions and have profound, unsettling effects as it presses for acceptance of an idea. That is why it's protected against censorship or punishment.
and what year was this, written?
1965.
Yeah, and that's actually kinda interesting that person had the forethought in 1965, especially given that that was, like, the era of the civil rights movement and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I would imagine that there would have started being a little bit of a backlash, even then, against racist language, but, I mean, not that I condone racist language, not that I condone homophobic language or anything like that, but at the same time, Damn, I am almost so close to just being an absolutist when it comes to free speech, with the exception of as long as you don't incite violence. Otherwise,
So
you can just
I
say
find
whatever the hell you want to say. And we're under that attack right now where we can't really say what we want to say.
I find it funny that you kind of jumped to, how there's sensitivity around racist language. This quote comes from a case called Cox v. Louisiana.
Mhm.
And the background of the case is that it was around the time of the Selma marches, and there was a group of 2,000 African Americans who had come to march in this town in Louisiana, and um, they wanted to protest, segregation, things like that.
Sure.
And it was a very peaceful march, through the town to the courthouse. They got to the courthouse, and everything was really peaceful
Right.
until the leader of the march, he had said something, like, "It's lunchtime. Here's the diners that we are protesting because they segregate. So go sit at the white counter. If they don't take your money, you sit there and you wait." That is when the white sheriff arrested the leader for, in breaching the peace, obstruction of a walkway, bullshit, right? And the court basically tossed everything out. And the court was saying, like, look, was this fighting words? No, it wasn't fighting words.
No, I don't
Everything
see
was
so.
peaceful. We've seen the videos. There's no fighting words, there's no threats, there's no intimidations. Everything that he said was protected. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean they can't say it.
Right, and it does work both ways. I mean, I'm just using the example of something that I think that you and I can both agree is abhorrent language, racism, homophobia, things
Yeah.
like that. And so I'm just using that as an example, but it can certainly work the other way. And thank God it does work the other way,
Yeah.
I think that I'm going to have to say, offer up some criticism to the left and the right on this one, because I have noticed, I can't come up with examples right off the top of my head, but I was just thinking about this when we were talking, and I was like, I've heard the left want to shut down speech before when it's speech that they don't like. I've heard the right want to shut down speech before when it's speech that they don't like. And, I'm kind of a little sick of both sides playing like they're angels in this. I kind of like that middle of the road person, because when you talk to that more middle of the road person, they tend to be a little bit more like, no, let everybody have their say. Just let everyone have their say.
Mhm.
And I kind of like that.
I have I will say that I'm comfortable saying that I am an absolutist when it comes to the First Amendment. Say whatever the fuck you're gonna say. If I don't like it, fuck you. I will never talk to you again. Fuck right on off with your bullshit. That's all that that does. Letting you say the horrible things that you want to say, it just tells me what a horrible shitbag you are,
Yep,
bottom line,
sure does.
you know?
I always
And it
I
tells
always
the
said
rest
that
of
in
the
the gay
world.
rights. I always said that in the gay rights fight, because I was one of those people in the '90s out marching in the streets and stuff like that. And I always said that. I was like, let Westboro Baptist Church show up. Go over there
Mhm.
and shake their hands. I have actually shaken the hand of Fred Phelps, a former
Oy
leader
vey.
of what Westboro Baptist Church. And he told
I
me
hope
that
you rubbed some of the gay off on him.
he told me that I was going to go to hell and that I deserved to burn in hell. And I told him, I was like, that's fine, but just know God loves you. And I walked on.
It the First Amendment hits have just kept coming the last 2 weeks or so. We talked about Don Lemon and him and I think her name was Georgia, getting arrested because they were reporting about that protest inside the church. Walter Masterson is now reportedly under investigation. Him and a few of his people went to Democratic Swazi's town hall. The town hall happened to be held in a Jewish temple. Whatever. That's where they were holding the town hall, right?
Mhm.
They show up to the town hall, and in Walter Masterson style, he got up, started reading a list of the names of the people that had died in ICE custody or ICE had killed in January.
Mhm.
And they asked him to leave. So he left. They were there on invitation. He received an invitation to show up. Him and his friends RSVP'd that they were going to go. They didn't bring a whole crowd of people or anybody that wasn't on the list. They left when they were asked to leave. It was that simple. But then Harmeet Dillon, she's the head of the DOJ Civil Rights Division. Of course, this whole administration likes to do government business on social media. So she sends out a
Right.
tweet saying that they're investigating Masterson under the FACE Act, which is the same act that they're trying to get Don Lemon under. Um, why? One, so I looked into it more. The FACE Act was to protect people at abortion clinics, to keep like the anti-abortionists from like physically storming the clinic, because in the 90s we had all those bombings and stuff of the clinics. Um, so that's what it was initially for. To get it to pass, Republicans back in the 90s had tacked on church locations. But this was a town hall. It wasn't a worship
Yeah.
service.
No,
And there's still
that's
no
a
update
totally
on
different
Valentina
situation.
Gomez. But there's still no update. Nobody's prosecuting Valentina Gomez.
Well, and no one's going to, at least under a Republican controlled thing, because I mean, she's a sideshow freak that the Republicans themselves don't take seriously. I mean, I know this for a fact. I've dealt with a stupid bitch here in Missouri, but anyway, I just, no one really takes her seriously, but she's a great sideshow for them. She gets the racists and the idiots all stirred up, and she does all the dirty work that they don't quite want to
Hmm.
do. You know, so
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
she's going to be left alone. She'll be left.
I don't even see Democrats batting an eye at her because she is crazy, you know?
All right.
But e to be honest, and here's my word of wisdom for the Republican Party. If you want to try and save a little bit of face, because your face is gone, like midterms are lost at this point. But if you want to try and save a little bit of face, you need to start punishing your own people for the same things that you're punishing the left for. If you started applying this fascist law evenly across the board, it would really be a lot harder to fight, you know?
Well, but who was it? Michael Knowles, I think it was. He came out and basically he admitted what the right is up to. Again, the left has probably done this to some extent. I just can't remember anything off the top of my head because the right's kind of like right there. God, I wish that would go away. But anyway, you know the the th it's like a headache or something. But anyway, the thing is he essentially admitted that he was completely in favor of applying the law unevenly and make it work for the right's advantage. He's essentially admitting he has no principles. And I
Right,
think that that's really what we need to understand about this MAGA crowd. You know, um, ultimately, they really don't have principles. They don't.
right,
It took me a lot of time to figure that out because they had a great message at first. That sounded good. Work hard. You know, let's make America the best that it can be. All that type of stuff all sounded great to me. But no, I think that we're finding that the a lot of the MAGA types, they just have no principles. It's basically what works for me is fine, and if it doesn't work for me, then fuck everyone else. That's kind of
Exactly.
their. That's pretty much their
Well,
platform.
well, and I think the kind of sad thing is that to be honest, it just makes me sad for MAGA. I'm not going to go out of my way to help them in my sadness. Um, I'll sit with a bucket of popcorn and watch them in my sadness. But the more powerful, the richer aspect of MAGA, the politicians, the oil folks, things like that, they know that a lot of the laws that they're passing are trampling on a majority of the MAGA party. You know, the great majority of the MAGA party is poor, uneducated, they live off the government, and if they're lucky, they have a minimum wage job. And they know that all of these laws that they're passing are gonna wipe them out, and they don't
that is
care.
that's actually a misconception about MAGA. The real hardcore MAGA that you really have to worry about is not the poor sucker, meaning
I'm
literally
not worried
poor
about the poor
sucker.
ones.
No,
I'm not I'm not
but
worried about the poor ones.
I'll
They're
tell
the
you
ones
what.
that are gonna get annihilated, and they're cheering it on every step of the way, and they're too stupid to know the difference.
Well, I don't disagree with you there, but I just want to correct this one misconception. There is a MAGA out there, and I know them because they're the only ones that I talk to. I didn't talk to the poor white trash that supported this shit. That's not who I talked to. I talked to the wealthy and the powerful who were MAGA. That was a completely different situation. And those fuckers know exactly what they're doing, and they're playing that poor group
Mhm.
like a fiddle, you know, and and they don't care about the so-called poor white trash or the poor black trash or whatever trash you want to talk about, because
Mhm.
you know what, no human is fucking trash. I'll tell you what, I think those fuckers think we are.
It so I just looked it up right now to see. So 30 to 35% of MAGA have incomes under 50%, under $50,000 per year. The greater majority, about, you know, half have incomes of at least $50,000 a year. Now, we know that with that $50,000, you're living in a lower cost of living state, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, you could get away with that in
Yeah,
Missouri but not
and
other
you
places.
can do
Yeah.
it, you know? But still, you are closer to being homeless than you are to the upper 1% of Republicans. You know, everybody's sitting out there, yay, Trump, yay, MAGA. You will never be a billionaire, ever. It's not going to happen. You are one horrific accident away from relying on welfare. And that's just how it is, you know? But they sit there and they cheer on this bullshit. And it makes me wonder why. How? How do you not
I
realize?
think there's an interesting thing among conservatives, and it kind of occurred to me recently. So it's uh, crazy that this even came up. They like to see people get punished, and they can be as poor as can be. Doesn't matter, but they still want to see people punished. You know,
Is it some weird kink? Is it a repressed
no,
sexual desire or
no,
something? What is it?
I don't think it has anything to do with sexual stuff at all. I think what it is they have this need for retribution and for vengeance, revenge, all that type of stuff. I mean, they're kind of like, I don't know. Well, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I'll just say, I'll just say that they really kind of get off on this idea. I don't know if it's a self hatred thing because maybe they see some of those flaws in themselves, so they get off on seeing somebody else get punished for it. I don't know, but
Maybe.
I just do know that it seems like when people go really, really right wing, they get super fucking judgmental and vengeful about stuff. And I think that there is something where they like to see people punished. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it exactly because see,
Maybe
thing
that's
is,
what it is.
I never have ever felt that way. You know, so I can't explain it. It's just something I've observed. They have this desire to see punishment.
Yeah, and it
Here's a good example. Here's a good example. Very popular. Thank God I thought of this because it'll help bring some clarity to the weird abstract thing that I brought up. So, among right wing gays, things like PrEP and doxy PrEP
mhm.
are hugely looked down upon. Because if you're a big enough of a whore to go out there and get this STD, then you deserve to have AIDS. Not shitting you. This comes from right wing gays.
And those are the same ones that think that, if you get pregnant, you must carry that baby, even if you were raped, even if you're a 12-year-old little girl. You did something to deserve it. And I'm seeing a lot of those now with the new acquisition of TikTok. I'm seeing a lot of those people, for whatever reason, coming across my algorithm. Don't know how
Mm.
you got here. There's nothing in my algorithm showing that I like you or I want to see your bullshit. But there was a lady who was talking about the Epstein Files. I've never wanted to reach through my phone and beat the crap out of someone so badly in my life. She was saying that these little girls knew exactly what they were doing, that they were going to these men, engaging in sexual acts with these men because they were getting money. They knew it, they wanted to do it.
Oh, that's some fucked up shit right there.
What the fuck? And then you have Megan Kelly, who's basically saying the same shit. You know,
Hmm.
she's saying, "Oh, these are 15, 16, 17-year-old girls. It's not like they're 8-year-old little girls." No, shitbag. They are 10-year-old little girls. They are younger little girls in here. And
Well,
even if they are 15, 16,
Megan
17,
Kelly would be
no
the first to.
40-year-old man has a Hmm?
I'm sorry to cut. No, I'm sorry to cut you off, but let me just say this: Megan Kelly is driving me nuts right now because she would be the absolute first person to say, "My God, you crossed the border illegally. You need to be deported from here." All right, Megan. Here's the thing, and I've been on your show, bitch. So here's the deal. Um, you know, if you're against that with the immigration, then we also have laws for statutory rape for a reason. So it doesn't matter, even if they were 17. The law was broken, Megan. Okay, Megan? Do you understand that? As a fucking prosecutor, do you understand that, honey?
Yep. It's the If you are going to take that hard line of the law is the law is the law, well, then the law is the law. I don't care
Right,
if you're turning 18 tomorrow and a 40-year-old man sleeps with you today. You're not 18 until tomorrow.
right.
So that was illegal today,
Yep, you got it. That's the way the law
you know?
works.
And
So,
it's
it's
like,
funny that she's willing to brush that off but she takes such a hardcore immigration stance.
yeah,
Yeah, imagine.
you're seeing that really hard right now with all of the Trump sycophants. I don't know what else to call them at this point. The pedo protectors. They are. yeah butting everything. There's another podcast that I watch, and I have seen the mom through the years, say, well, if Trump does XYZ, I'm going to stop supporting him. Okay, Trump does XYZ, and she'll say, oh, yeah, that was a sham court case. That's not true. They told lies. Those jurors were told lies. That's why they voted that. And she continues supporting him. So now she's really being challenged when it comes to the Epstein files that are coming out. And she keeps going to there's pages and pages in there of tip line information. She keeps saying, well, Trump's name is only mentioned in the tip lines, and those are just tips. Those are unfounded. Well, I hate to break it to you, Susan, but when Trump gets put on trial, those allegations can be used against him. It will overcome any kind of objection that can be brought. He will be held to answer, and those will come in as evidence because it's going to be similar to something else he's being charged with, you know? And it breaks my heart because she has a daughter. And the only thing I can think is, girl, if your kid was 15 and came to you and said, "Mom, some guy did this to me," are you then gonna would you not believe your 15-year-old kid? Because she
Right.
just said it. There's no hard proof, you know? The guy is saying he didn't do it, so she's not telling me the truth. If that's the case, go burn in hell, bitch, because you're
Right.
disgusting. You are a disgusting example of a parent, you know? And if that's not the case, then why wouldn't you believe these other girls? Why
Right.
wouldn't you say that that has some credibility? I don't understand it. But these are the same women that are a-okay, hunky dory with every married woman losing her right to vote. Republicans are really hard pressed trying to pass the SAVE Act, and it got passed in the House. There's a lot of speculation that it's not even going to be brought to a vote in the Senate. Um, Hopefully it doesn't, because it's just going to waste more time if it does. But for men, the SAVE Act isn't that big of a deal, right? You don't ever change your name. I don't know. When gay guys get married, is it a thing to change your name?
Depends. Nathan and I didn't do it.
Okay. So the gay men that did, I mean, you're going to be, no pun intended, but you're going to be asked out with the SAVE Act in order to be able to re register to vote, because everyone's going to have to re register. And we've got,
Right.
9 months left, and you have to re register to vote. You have to have a birth certificate where your last name matches what's on your photo ID. And that's the simplest way, right? But if you're a woman who's gotten married and your last name is no longer your maiden name, it doesn't match. This SAVE Act has no clear cut, here's what states need to do. All it says is states can figure out what they want to do so that women can vote. States can figure it out. So let's say Senate doesn't vote on this until June. They vote on it, and for whatever reason it passes, right? And they want it enacted now so that they don't lose in the midterms, right? Then what, it takes effect in July, and then you've got July, August, September, October, November, 5 months for states to figure out how the fuck to make sure women who are married and have different last names in their birth certificate are able to vote?
Well, um, as you know, let's put it this way. Um, I'm a proud Missourian, so I gotta rely on my Missouri knowledge here. I'll put it this way: Missouri Republicans are actually against this.
Thank goodness.
So here's the thing. I'm just thinking if Missouri Republicans are against this, this cannot be a good idea.
Right? Right?
I mean, seriously, guys. I mean, this is one thing that I can absolutely support them on and be like, way to go, guys. Stick up for those
So
states' rights.
everybody, everyone on the right that is pro this thing, right? Um, is saying, well, a real ID is enough. All you need is a real ID. No, no. You haven't gone and read the act, plain and simple. Tell me you're stupid without telling me you're stupid. This is how you fucking do it. So the SAVE Act says that your real ID can be a form of ID that you use, but you have to have with it one of these things: your a copy of your birth certificate that is properly filed listing one or both parents. Your copy must be signed by a state official with the date it was filed and a seal.
From
I have a
Jesus
copy of
Christ
my birth
himself,
certificate.
maybe?
Huh?
With from Jesus Christ himself, is that what who's supposed to seal it?
Fucking basically. They want,
God.
if you don't have that, right? If for whatever reason you can't go get that, then you can have an extract of a US hospital's record of birth created at the time you were born. So, Karen, if you're like 75, you and your bad hip better go hobble down to the hospital you were born at, pray to Jesus it isn't closed or it hasn't burned down, and pray that they have a copy of the record that a nurse wrote 75 years ago saying, yeah, Susan, whatever, whatever, was born on such and such a date and time. But guess what? That last name doesn't match the last name you have now because you were the dutiful wife and you changed
Right.
it.
So I'm going to cover up some information here because I don't want everyone to see this. But as you can see, I have a Missouri Real ID. It has that little star on it. I did not need to do all that shit in order to get a real ID. So anyone trying to lie to you and tell you that a real ID is going to meet the standards of this law is full of shit. Because guess what? I had lost my birth certificate. You know what you have to do in Missouri, at least, in order to get a birth certificate? Pay $15 to the county health office and they print you off one. I mean, that's why it was so easy to get a fake ID in Missouri back in the 90s because you could just go ask for anybody's ID and just like show it. All right. So we have that. So that's my proof of birth is I just happen to show up and pay $15.
But that's not good enough for this SAVE Act.
Exactly, that's the point. So the fact that they're saying that the real ID should be good
Hmm.
enough, I'm telling you as a real ID holder, the joke that it was for me to be able to get this, I really didn't have to prove my ID.
Now, I think that's funny because my daughter has a real ID, right? She's
Mhm,
23. When she was 16 and just getting her driver's license, she had a hell of a time in California. So her birth certificate had her first, middle, and last name, and she had my maiden name when she was born. She was adopted by my husband at the time
mhm,
when she was 14, 15 years old, right?
mhm.
We didn't have a copy of that birth certificate. We had her original one. That wasn't good enough because
Oh,
her
those
last
aren't
name had
because they're
been
not
changed.
certified. Well, and they're not
Right.
certified
So,
usually.
well, we had to go get the other birth certificate. So we get the other birth certificate. We go, both birth certificates in hand. Look, she was Delgado. Now she's Richie. Hey, can she have her ID now? Can she have her driver's license? No, because now they wanted to know why her name was changed. So we had to go back. I had to get my marriage certificate to him and my divorce documents. So for her in California, all these red state people saying that California lets anybody vote, lets anybody register, they don't check your citizenship. Bullshit, motherfuckers.
I was gonna say
She had to have both fucking birth certificates, my marriage certificate, and my divorce documents in order for her to get a fucking driver's license at 16. So fuck all of you that talk shit
the
about California.
Well, so it's funny. Basically, California is essentially has rules that sound like this act in Congress, and Missouri
Right?
is sitting here like, "Hmm, well, no, of course we don't want this because it doesn't matter here."
But now, if they pass this SAVE Act, motherfucker, we've got to go through all that again. And now she's married. So
So
now
her name
it's
has changed 3 times.
again. So now it's her birth certificate, the first one, then the changed one, my marriage certificate, and the divorce paperwork, her marriage certificate to her current husband, plus whatever other bullshit you need for the real ID. It's something like a utility bill, basically the blood of her first child to prove that she's a fucking human and not a reptilian. I don't fucking know.
Actually, real
But
ID is not very hard to get. I mean, I will say that, which is why I think it's funny that, you know, people in Congress are saying that, oh, the real ID will be fine. It's like, well, you do understand how the real ID works in some states. And I can guarantee you it doesn't really prove anybody's identity. So you sitting there saying that that'll work, that doesn't match up with your legislation. So now you're full of shit. So even people with a real ID are gonna have to go out and redo a bunch of shit. It's stupid. The
yeah,
whole thing's fucking stupid.
and everybody's going to have to go and re register. I mean, at the end of the day, if this bullshit passes, I do not believe that even Thomas will open his mouth to suck that boot. No. If you wanted to change this law, you wanted to pass this, make it effective 10 years from now. You have to give the states time. You have to give the people time.
Well, Thomas is enough of a states' rights person, and he likes to leave things more to the states, which I don't necessarily disagree with him on certain things.
He also likes
Um,
to, change Trump's diaper.
well, no, like I said, I don't disagree with him on certain things. I mean, changing Trump's diaper, but,
Hey,
but
he's in the
um,
Epstein Files. He just might have changed the diaper. He is in those files.
it is possible, maybe. But
Mhm.
regardless of that, he's too much of a states' rights guy. I don't think he's gonna go along with us.
It there is I don't see there being a snowball's chance in hell of this thing ever passing. And if it does, they're going to give it an effective date 10 years from now because people
Right.
have to have time. And if you want to pass this and say it's effective 10 years from now, cool. I have 10 years to do what I have to do. Like, whatever, that's not an issue, you know? You better also make sure that there are programs for the elderly who don't have the money to do all this shit. You better make sure that there's federal money so that states can hire people to go to homes of disabled and elderly persons and help them get this done. You can't dump this on people's laps without helping them.
Well, that's true. But I'll tell you what. I do not want any sort of federalized voting system, and
No.
and
The
here is
the
why.
Constitution gives it
Um,
to the states. There's no reason
well,
for it to be federal.
right. The Constitution gives it to the states, so it's unconstitutional in the first place. But there is also another practical reason why I would not want to see anything like that. And that is for all of Trump's talk about, voter fraud and rigged elections and all
Mhm.
that type of shit, which I think is all bullshit. I mean, I never bought any of that stuff. Even when I was an avid Trump supporter, I did not buy that stuff. I was like, that's just him being a blustering idiot. But anyway, the thing is if you are going to rig an election, you're going to want a nice national election system because that's only one
Mhm.
system to go after. To rig an election in 50 fucking states that are all independent and have their own election systems, that's going to be way more
Yeah.
complicated. I think
Yeah.
I think we need to keep it as is. The founders actually had a good idea.
Now, the thing that I do worry about is Trump has been talking about, you know, taking over the election, right? And then you've got Steve Bannon, who we all know, as much as he blusters, the man's not stupid. Steve Bannon, I legitimately am concerned and afraid of because he effectuated a great majority of Trump's campaigns both times.
Yeah,
He knows what he's doing, he knows how to manipulate, and he's advocating putting ICE at the polling stations as a means of intimidation.
right.
Obviously, the official line is to protect the voting places. Fuck off with all that bullshit. We know it's not. You know,
That's why
we'll
we have
see.
local police forces. We don't need your help, federal government. Thank you.
Exactly. Exactly. So one of the DHS guys, I forget his name, he was in a Senate committee hearing and they asked him about it. You know, we know that ICE has no authorization to be at voting places. Do you have any plans to do what Steve Bannon's talking about and what Trump has indicated that he wants and to put ICE stationed at those voting locations? And he said, no, ICE has no place. They don't belong there. That's not their job. That's not, in our guidelines, which, whatever, that's fine and good. Kavanaugh said that he wouldn't overturn Roe v. Wade too. And as soon as he got the first chance, he overturned it. We know the motherfuckers are lying assholes. But at least now we can get him for perjury down the line if he does it. It's just Bannon's the one that I'm afraid of.
Yeah, I definitely do think that the left sometimes. Well, I don't know how seriously you guys take it. I mean, I certainly still don't consider myself a part of the left. I don't consider myself a part of the right either. I don't know how you guys take it, but I do hear a lot of words about, people being stupid in the Trump administration. And I'm not saying that they sometimes don't do stupid shit for sure, but I think that honestly, they are diabolically intelligent people. And
It
so I
I
say do not misunderestimate them.
I know
Misunderestimate
that when
notice.
I say they're stupid, I'm not talking IQ. I'm not talking IQ. I'm talking EQ, social abilities, social skills. You're a fucking idiot, you know? Do I think that maybe the brain cells that you have, you can effectuate them to cause harm? Abso-fucking-lutely. I think
Yeah.
Steve Bannon's a giant fucking idiot, but he's a terrifying idiot. He's not
Well, that's why I
Bubba,
say he
you
he
know?
has like he
He
has like
he's not
diabolical intelligence.
he's not Bubba, whose mom is also his aunt and his cousin at the same time, you know? He he's scary,
I really wish you
He's an
wouldn't
idiot
bring up my
because
wish you wouldn't bring up my family. Come on.
you told me that in confidence, man, I know, I'm sorry. My bad. But it I think it's more of a you're stupid if you think that even 50% of the MAGA is going to be like, "Oh, yeah, that's a good idea." I think there are a lot of things that they are doing clearly since Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert are like, "Whoa, you crossed a line." That's where they're stupid. They had so much support and they
Mhm.
chucked it all in the bucket.
Well, that's true, but thank God they did because I mean,
Oh,
they're
yes.
so I'm all for that. I mean, it's kind of funny. I'm thinking about I'm not going to mention the person's name, but I'm thinking about a person that I met on Capitol Hill. Went into their office, talked to them. It was almost like, here, let's do some shots and talk and drop a bunch of F bombs. And it was like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hmm, okay, no, no, thank you. I don't need booze. Um, I was expecting something good to come of that. Nothing really did.
Right.
Went to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Of course, she already knew me, so there was that. But it was a totally different vibe. I mean, say what you will about the woman. I mean, there are certainly things that I disagreed with her on, but I had to respect her professionalism. I didn't get this even out of my own senators in Missouri
I think
when
we
I
have
went to
different
talk to
definitions of
them.
professionalism.
I'm not talking about her public persona. I'm
Okay.
talking about I'm talking about something else.
Okay.
She had so we came in, like I said, she already knew me and everything. But we came in, she was very down to business. She had her whole staff come in. She expected them all to have pen and paper. She was like, I don't want any fucking tablets or anything. I want this shit to be able to be destroyed.
Right.
And uh anyway, she was very down to business. Everything was extremely professional and extremely focused. She was not all over the place. She was not the Marjorie Taylor Greene that you see on TV. She was a totally different person. And she was a very serious person. And I think that honestly, that's probably why Trump lost her. She knew how to play the MAGA game and she knew how to
Mhm.
play it well. But if you
Mhm.
knew her behind the scenes, that's not how she was. And
Right.
the thing is Donald Trump's not professional at all.
No. I mean, come on.
He's not.
He tells reporters, "Quiet, piggy."
Yeah. And I think and he is also not legitimately America first. And
No.
Marjorie Taylor Greene was legitimately America first. So I mean, she was in a lot of ways this kind of weird quasi libertarian sort of like anarchist thing when I really got to know her. And um yeah, I mean, but I can see just from what I know of the woman why she dumped Donald Trump on his head. Of course she did, because she's not going to tolerate that shit.
Well, I mean, she tolerated it until it no longer suited her. She tolerated it until she benefited from it, and then she talked a great majority of Georgia MAGA folk into voting for the guy, into voting against their best interest, and then fucking dumped him.
No,
She just fucking dumped him.
I think she honestly believed it. I think she honestly believed it. She was like me. She believed it. She thought there was something there where nothing was actually there. And she was inexperienced. She came out with a lot of stupid shit. She was part of the conservative conspiracy groups and all that type of shit, but she got a reality check when she got to Washington, D.C. She woke up to reality and the way things really were. And I think that if you follow her career from the time that she actually became well known to now, you'll notice an evolution. It's not overnight. It wasn't that Donald Trump suddenly didn't work for her. There was an evolution if you watched her closely. Uh
There was, but if I was from Georgia and I had voted for her because, I bought into all the MAGA stuff, I'd be pretty pissed that she just dumped me.
well, I think that's a legitimate concern, especially from the point of view of the voters. But I mean, the fact that yeah, okay, let's put it this way. I can see her point of view this way. And this hasn't come from her. This is just my guess. No Democrat's going to ever openly work with her for sure. So she has no influence that way. Okay, she's come out publicly against Donald Trump. Which she should have done, and she did do. So kudos to her on that.
Mhm, mhm.
But that also
Yeah.
means, but that also means that very few Republicans are ever going to work with her too. So she really can't be an effective representative for the people of Georgia. And so I can see why, from that standpoint, you would step down because you know that you can no longer be an effective representative because you've basically given up all of your power.
I think that had she stuck it out, that she could have gotten Democrats to work with her. She could
I
have
would
moved her
like
way to center,
I would have liked to have seen her stick it out, honestly.
you know?
I'm just guessing from what I know from the woman, because I do know that she is actually more principled than she is concerned about, like, the public image. And, so I really do think that she just realized she had nowhere to go, and somebody else would probably be a better representative. That's my guess.
Yeah.
That's my guess. And maybe I'm being too kind-hearted toward her, but I mean, I do know the woman to a certain degree, and she's not what you saw on TV. I can guarantee that.
It I I wish she would have stuck it out. She showed a lot of growth and maturity, even in her public image from the very beginning until now. Um, I would have liked to have seen her continue that growth,
Yeah. Oh,
you
I
know?
would have too. I would have too. I mean, I'll tell you what, I'd never vote for her for president, but I mean,
No.
she
No.
she she would still be a great senator or something from Georgia. So maybe if she wants to try it again, maybe she can go that route.
Uh, I don't know. So real quick in our last time remaining, I want to jump to the Epstein Files and talk about what we are not doing, right? So there's maybe a total now of 6 million, 7 million documents that have been released. Todd Blanche made it very clear that there are still several million documents that have not been released and are not going to be released. So Todd Blanche basically said, F all of you. We're done. We're tired. We're over it. Um, and him and Pam Bondi have said, we're not going to prosecute anybody. We're not doing any more investigation on any of the allegations that are here. Eh, here's the files. We're done. Fuck these victims. We don't care in America. Now, we all know Pam Bondi sucks. Todd Blanche sucks. Donald sucks. Patel sucks. They all suck, right? Fingers crossed that whoever comes up next, a Republican's not going to get voted for president in the next election. So I kind of hope that some Democrat comes along with a plan on this is what we're going to do now that we have this stuff here. But worldwide, we've seen repercussions.
Right.
Norway has seen people resign and has started investigating their folks. Slovakia has seen people resign and started investigating their people. France chickened out the same way our DOJ did. And Macron he basically said, this is an American problem. This isn't a French problem. We're not going to do anything, even though their former culture minister Jack Lang resigned and his daughter Caroline Lang resigned from her position in some film industry because of their ties with Jeffrey Epstein. Macron said, we're not going to do anything about it. Um, and then, of course, there's us. Everyone's calling for Letnick to resign because he's all over the files. Of course, Donald is all over the files and nobody's doing anything about it. We've got Brad Karp, who's a big time lawyer. He stepped down. David Ross resigned as a department chair for School of Visual Arts in New York, and schools are canceling Picture Day because the guy that was in charge of that company is all over the Epstein files.
For the most part, though, you're still not seeing a lot of fallout among the American elite.
No,
And
no.
so I do find that interesting. I bet you anything that I'd almost bet my life on it. Those extra documents that they don't want to release are probably the ones that throw everyone from America under the
Yeah.
bus. And wasn't it Pam Bondi that said something along the lines of maybe it was the same thing where what you're talking about, where she says she wasn't going to prosecute this but didn't she actually qualify it with like because it would bring the American government down or some bullshit
Yep.
like that? Yeah.
She said that if we prosecuted based off of the Epstein files, that the entire system would collapse. Bitch, let it collapse.
Yeah. I
If the system
on
allowed this to happen, it was broken. Let it
y-
fucking collapse.
yep. Yep.
Let it
Exactly.
go.
And I completely agree with that. So yeah, let that motherfucker burn,
And
as far as I'm concerned.
I'm going to end us on a very morbid note.
Let's
Let
go
me
for
see.
it.
I am going to end us on a very morbid note if I can find it. And while I'm looking at it, just FYI, if you decide that you want to look at it, be very careful. There are unredacted photos of children that do qualify as CSAM, child sexual abuse material.
Oh,
So
I would
anyone
def
listening and you, Chris,
honestly,
be very careful.
I was gonna say, honestly, I wouldn't even pull that up on my computer if I
Yeah.
were you.
Be very careful, anybody who's looking through these things. So, our
Yeah.
very morbid note, there is a victim who has a full-on police report in there, and she named Trump and she named Epstein as having raped her. And she went into some detailed, sadistic shit. After she made that police report, her her dead body was found with the head blown off. And police reports based off of her dead body trying to investigate her murder have said that there's no way that she died by suicide. The way that she was shot in the head, this was not a suicide, and that's in the reports. So do with that what you will, but when somebody by name called out Donald and called out Epstein, someone took care of her, and Patel said that there's nothing in the files. And that's our country for you. Trying to take away our
Well,
First Amendment right. You've got the DC Attorney General trying to take away our Second Amendment rights. Mike Johnson's crying that the Fourth Amendment is too difficult. It's too much work to go get a warrant to arrest people. And we protect pedophiles. Are we great yet? I don't know.
sounds great. I'm sure it's exactly what the founding fathers wanted. The thing is, like there were a lot of people in the founding of this country who didn't like what was going on here, especially as far as slavery was concerned.
Mhm.
So that was always a fraught issue from the beginning. And it was no different among the founders of this country as well. There were many who were absolutely against it. It was just stupid economics, basically money, the root of all evil that kept it in place for as long as it did. But I will say this: if you have the chance to read information from our founders and stuff like that, I think that you'll find, and this is directed towards the audience, I think that you'll find that there's a lot of really good stuff in there, a lot of good hopeful things in there. And I would definitely recommend that because when we talk about making America great, it would be nice if we actually lived up to their ideals because they had some
Mhm.
pretty good ones.
I think we need to drop the again part. We've never really been great. Each time we've gotten close, we stepped on our own dicks and we fell.
Yeah.
We haven't been great yet.
And
I'd
you'll
like to
notice
see a
I
time
didn't
where our
say
country is great.
and you'll notice I didn't say again. I was like just making America great.
So, on that morbid, very depressing note, folks, thank you for listening in. And barring either one of us getting really sick, we will see you next week. Have a good night.
All right. Take care, guys.
If you want a second opinion or just something to rage about, hit that button and subscribe. This has been Political Malpractice.